Good morning, everyone. Thank you for watching us. We are live on Africa TV. Africa seen under another price. That of its emergency. A few days ago, we were talking about the rise of China with Huawei technology, which announced for soon the arrival of the lucrative market of advanced telecommunication network 5G. A network that offers more technological possibility and more extraordinary innovations. A network that will allow ultra connectivity between individuals. Barely announced that already the United States and its allies are more than ever standing up to block China its breakthrough and check out its technological expansion. On this set and with our guest, it is a question of seeing how Africans, individuals can set up company as power as Huawei technology to be economically strong and dominate the world. In my right, hello Mr. Edmond.
Good morning and thanks for inviting
Edmond
me.
Kuate,
Yep.
you are economist. Thank you for honoring us with your presence today.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here today.
In my left, good morning, Mr. Omba
Good
Christopher.
morning, Marie-Louise.
You are a digital transformation manager.
Yeah,
Thank you also for honoring us with your presence
you're welcome.
on this economy first trial. My first question is for Mr. Omba Christopher. It must be said that Africa and Africans are sleeping, and it's time for everyone to wake up.
Mm, It's obvious that when we look around our performances at the commercial level, at the international scale, we
Yes.
might easily pretend that African countries are sleeping, but there are many blockages that interferes with the acceleration of development. Most of them are well known: corruption, poor governances, and a lack of understanding of technological opportunities. And clearly, many policies have been changed recently to give a proper answer to this issue, so that we can also observe um, blatant changes that may open up in the most in the coming decades, very interesting uh, opening for development.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Edmond Kuate,
Yep.
it is clear that Huawei Technology is a private Chinese company,
Mm,
but supported by the Communist Party.
mm.
Why don't Africans come together to create a company like Huawei?
Well, in the first place, I would like to, kind of make a difference because when we're talking of Africa, it's like we're talking of a single country. We have to be very careful. I always like to say that some countries in Africa were doing perfectly good, in terms of even technology, development, economic and so on, even democracy, and even good governance. There are some countries in Africa doing very good, and then there are some countries in Africa dragging Africa behind. So, South Africa is doing perfectly good. Algeria, they are doing good. Nigeria also, they are, if you go to West Africa, what they are doing there is just marvelous. It's awesome. I mean, like Kenya, like Ethiopia, all these countries are doing perfectly good. Now we got some countries in Africa. They are still sleeping, like you said. They are still like slumbering, drowsing, and it is obvious that if nothing is done, they will be they will have a very very huge delay in terms of development, in terms of technology and so on. You just mentioned Huawei technology, which is today one of the powerful company. All the companies, you got to know that most of these corporations in China, they are private companies, but they are supported. It's a kind of policy, for the Chinese government. Most of these corporations are private companies but supported by the government. And when you mention Huawei, it just remind me of this war going on between China and the United States and some European countries as well. We have decided to ban Huawei because Huawei is doing perfectly good. I would just like to say this because yesterday I was having a debate on the TV. It was a TV debate also. We were talking about the diaspora of Africa. I mean, is it a curse or a blessing? And then I was saying that I would like to take this example of China, the way they have been using their diaspora, because you got to know that one of the problem with the between China and Europe and United States today is that they are accusing China of industrial spying, and that is what Africa are not doing. One of the things, it is very crazy. I heard Africa every day they are talking about technology transfer. I don't know what they means by technology transfer. It like technology is becoming a letter that they would fold it and put it in an envelope and drop it in the post office and then send it, transfer it to Africa. It doesn't work that way. Three ways of having technology: either you invest a lot of money, you go into the lab and you develop technology, or you invest a lot of money to buy it, or you steal it. And that is what Huawei China has been doing. That's what we call industrial espionage. You spy, you cheat, you steal, and that's what Huawei has been doing. And that is one of the things. If Africa really want to develop itself, there, that's what they have to do. I don't understand why in Cameroon, in Africa, for instance, I mean, not all the most of these countries in French-speaking Africa, they grant a lot of scholarship to people to go and study out there, but they don't monitor them and they don't assign them any mission. They just send them to acquire knowledge and they don't assign them any mission. Sometimes they go out there, they study and they stay there. None of them think of coming back to Africa. How do you expect to develop yourself? We are in the continent whereby we have a lot of delay in terms of technology, and we don't have that capability actually to go into the labs and develop the technology. How do you, if you cannot copy what is being done, and we don't have that money actually to buy because technology is very very expensive. You can even use the whole budget of Cameroon, you will not be, there are some technology you will not be able to buy. So the only thing you can do is to make sure when you give grant scholarship to some students to go out there and acquire knowledge, you must assign them some official missions. Please go and see how people are doing out there, and you come and implement it here. That is what we have to do. So sincerely, I think we got a lot to do in Africa, and in some countries in Africa. Like I said, I know most of these African countries, they are doing perfectly good because I've been there myself. I've seen what they are doing. I've been very very surprised to see how these Kenyan guys are doing. They have a Silicon Valley in Kenya, very tough, very powerful, and they are developing very tough softwares, management of softwares and so on. So it's only in Central Africa, I think so. It's only in Central Africa that people are still sleeping, thinking that life is good, and then we can just go ahead and maybe drink some beer, take some alcohol, maybe do whatever we want to do. But we have a huge delay that we have to correct.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Omba, is it difficult? What do you need? Do Africans have the means, human resource, and expertise?
Actually, contrary to the popular belief, Central Africa, for example, is well known to have a very great amount of expertise in different fields. And to respond to Mr. Kate, I will just say that those crises, they differ from a country to another. And when you present Africa, you need to think in terms of majority, and the majority of countries are not doing well. We need to accept this failure, and in order to have interconnected plan for all the sake of the continent. But for the rest, I completely agree. So, can we turn back on the question again, because there are so many things in my head.
Mm.
Would you mind repeating, please?
Yes. Is it difficult?
It's not difficult, but we have been facing many issues that are not efficiently handled by the government. The lack of understanding and migration in digital transformation, for example, the like we say in French, la fracture numérique. I'm going to get back in English quickly.
Yes.
It's just a trap that interfere with the brand new possibility to accelerate the development to new milestones. So there is the second point where I'm going to contradict my fellow here, that we can no longer go outside and shit technology and come back and try to use them, because those realities are not our own reality. We need to have contextual re-engineering approach with radical observation and under the most realistic way to create something that emanates of our context. So we need to due to the fact that I'm a digital transformation specialist, I'm going to give a simple clue to every government that would like to impose rapid changes in Africa. Is completely free, but if someone want to pay me, you have to give my address. It's very simple here right now to make positive changes. For example, if you take education in a country, in any country in Central Africa, I won't take my case for the moment because my case is facing. For education, you can harmonize the different aspects on the need of the educational system by doing different models from which you are going to put every positive answer based on an interconnected set of I'm going to repeat myself, connection between many of those models. If so, for example, you have your own child at home, and he has a mobile or a tablet or something like that, he should have access to the examination papers to train, so that when the exam comes, it's just easy for him to succeed.
Yeah.
But when you look at Central Africa, you don't see those things. They are very easy solution. And maybe for the case of Cameroon, I'm going to go for my own case for my country. Many young people have had the courage to give those proposals to the government, but there is a delay. They are always presenting things as if the project were not matured, and it is normal because there are many consequences for the deployment of those kind of projects. But at the other hand, there might be much more easier solutions that cannot be imposed because there's a lack of funding. So the financial system is not efficient because they are ruled by very old generations who might not easily understand what are the opportunities that we can have if we set those kind of strategy. They don't have the open-mindedness. It's not their fault. So as soon as the young generation that are much connected to this reality will come into the will get into the business, we are going to have much more changes. But let's get back to what I was doing because I want to finish my presentation. For the education, for example, you can have something like an interconnected set of systems This is something my company does actually, and I've made many proposals. You can be at home, and your child can have maybe free books, have free reading to decent app, to decent infrastructure, data management infrastructure, and the government is going to collect data easily to see whether their policies are efficient or whether they can be changed. For the health, it was just a very small example. For the health system, for example, you know what was happening recently in Douala, because we have already heard of that. Even in the newspaper, there was a very tragic case, but that tragic case is also due to a poor governance and a very low level of mastery of health system. Health system should be intelligently organized. It has to be built around data, around the business intelligence approach, so that if you have your cell phone, for example, you want to get to hospital, you have an issue, you can even paste the symptom and have the information about the kind of expertise you might need. The algorithm would even go further. It can, based on your symptom, give you what is the based on the place you live, the kind of disease you might have, so that now the government will have the data of the number of people who have catch AIDS or HIV, and implement very in the most very reactive way policies for a very complete and sufficient impact. So there are plenty of things that can be done. For example, in my case, I have a company. If you give me the government of one of Central African countries, and you give me something like 5 years, I'm pretty sure I can change plenty of things. So before I leave you, because you need to move forward, I'm
Yes.
going to get to the last and the most important system of the cornerstone that can be changed is the financial system. We don't have a very good financial system for a very basic reason. The data is not easily collected, and the consequence is we have in most of Central Africa countries, if I have to talk about them, a very good, a very high amount of people unbanked. They don't have bank because they don't know how to use that, and bank, they don't trust poor people, which create a vicious circle that doesn't allow development. Based on the digital transformation recently, things have started to change the situation. The people have access to their mobile money, for example, but the next step would be the creation of financial product like crowdfunding, crowdlending. It will be based on algorithm and on the credit scoring that is going to be based to the way they live in, for example, digital and social networks. So whatever you do in social networks is going to give a data to the whole system, so that you can have financial product adapt to the way you live, and so on and so on. So there are plenty of things that can be done, and for the first time of the history, there is machine learning. There are many outlets. There are programs like Adobe. They are well known, and they are used even by young Cameroonians. But I won't be afraid to say it. The government need to accelerate the digital transformation for much more transparency, for much more integrity, and the sooner it will be done, the better Africa is going to catch up the delay.
Okay, thank you. I'm with you now, Mr. Edmond Piate. By 2050, Africa have a population of nearly 2 billion and a half. If only 1 million people decide each month not to drink beer and to save 500 francs safer, that will make a manner of 50 billion francs safer. And if we are 200 million, that will be 100 billion. And what can we do with that money?
Obviously, we can do a lot of things, but the problem is the issue is can we actually get up to that type of organizations in Africa? No, I think that's dreaming. I mean, considering the type of configuration we are living in, that is a dream. And I don't want to dream. I want to be realistic, because. I just want to bring you to the little scale of Cameroon. If you want to operate such things in Cameroon, obviously you will fail. You will never be able to succeed simply because socially we don't have that type of organization that can bring people together and be able to operate such vision. What I'm saying, and like I said, Christopher said a lot of things, which is actually very good, and I hope there are some people out there, I mean, really listening to him because the problem we got in Africa, not only in Cameroon, is not that of human resources. No, forget about it. We got very good talents in Africa. We got people with visions in Africa. We got people who are well trained in Africa. But the problem is we got to understand the development of a country is subject to a vision at the top of the country. That is what the development. If the government, if the people governing the country, if the rulers of the country, if they do not have a target, if they do not have a vision, if they do not have perspective where they want to lead the country into, they will never be able to identify the talent we got, and they will never be able to use them. So we're not dying, we're not poor, we're not what we are today because we don't have talent, because we have problem of human resources, or because we don't have the natural potentials. I would like to recall that Africa is the most richest continent in the world. Actually, 70% of raw materials being used in the world, in all the industries in the world, belongs to Africa and comes from Africa. And if you see what Africans are doing out there, I mean, in big corporations in US, in Europe, if you see what Africans are doing and the positions they are having, you will understand that Africa have talent. So the problems here is the vision. Do people who are governing, leaders in Africa, do they have a vision for the development of their country? And I would like to say no. One of the things is that the software they are using to govern our country is obsolete. We have to change it. You get people of 90, 30 who still want to pilot people of 30 years, people who are going pretty fast. Things are moving pretty fast. We have to completely change the software that are governing our country. We have to change them completely. So
Because they
this,
are old.
yeah, this old generation, they have to succumb. They have to leave. They have to give chance to, I mean, to the young generation who actually understand how the world is functioning. If you see the Silicon Valley, if you see how people are operating in the Silicon Valley, you understand how the world is moving. He mentioned a problem of lack of financing. It is not the lack of financing, it's the mismanagement of the little we got. Just recently in this country, in Cameroon, you saw the Minister of Higher Education using 75 billion CFA just to import some piece of, I would call it what, smartphones to give to students. This 75 billion, it was properly used, it could have been able to set up good industry for the production of technologies, high level technologies. If I'm sure if he consulted people like Christopher, I mean just five of them, and asked them, please, what can you do with 75 billion in the new technology system? I'm sure they will have given him the best advice that we have been able to build to set up a very good industry, something important, something good for Cameroonians. But you saw what he did. So he used 75 billion in Cameroon just to purchase, just to import some piece of I don't know how to call it, because it cannot even be used for 2 years. So it is not a problem of lack of financing. Of course, we do have money. We have the money. Probably when we talk of money, the capital, people thinks we are talking of banknotes. No, that is not what we are talking about. When we have the resources that we got, you got everything. You got the capital. You got what it takes to have the money. But now, if you don't, it's like if you are sitting on gold and then you don't know that you are sitting on gold, people will come and explore it and then they will give you piece of peanut. That is it. So we have a problem. Is that the first problem we get is that we don't have leaders that actually have that vision to be able to predefine a development target for our countries, and we don't have those who are there are now. They are, I mean, the software governing our countries are obsolete. Talking about what you said if couple of people could save 700 francs per day. That is the price of a beer, of a bottle of beer. Yes, if you put that together, at the end of the day, you give some statistics, which is very good, which is real. But I'm afraid to tell you again that it will not be feasible. Don't dream. It is actually what should be done, because in China that is the model. I'm sure you copy that model in China, because that is how they found private companies in China. Actually, many people put themselves together, and in Korea too. If you see, Samsung is being built on that model. Samsung, Hyundai, and most of the Korean corporations, they are being built based on that system, which is very good. It means it's many people put themselves together and bring a capital for a company. That is good.
But it in Africa.
You can't do it in Africa
For
because, like I
what?
said, there is nothing is spontaneous. Everything is subject to a particular organization, social organization, political organization, and economic organization. If you don't have that organization, so don't expect people. Even if you bring that idea, people will not understand and nobody will trust you, because people have sometimes been scammed through this type of operations. They have been scammed, and they will tell you, if you bring that idea, people will say that is a scammer, he want to scam us. But if the government could organize people, because the government, everybody trusts the government, but if the government could organize people through this type of operation, then it is good, because the government gives the guarantee. If the government say, okay, in that particular account, in a particular bank, I want all Cameroonian, I need uh, uh, 2 million Cameroonians who will put 700 in that particular account each month for this particular target. Trust me, it will be done, because it is a government. If a minister says it, if the president of the republic says it, if the secretary general of the presidency says it, if it is organized by the government, it will work. But before the government does that, they need to have a particular target. They need to know where they want to go to. They must be clear and feasible. There must be a project that everybody can see, everybody can read, everybody can go through and know that this is something feasible, this is something I can take part to. But if there is nothing, if we are living day after day, because we in Cameroon, we in Africa, we are living day after day, there is no perspective, there's no planification, there is no vision, we just living one day after another. So don't expect things like that to be done. Disobey to people who have vision, who have a good target, they know where they are going to, they have perspective. Within 5 years, 10 years, these are people who have this type of vision. So don't even think about it. In Africa, it's a simple dream, and I am not a dreamer, so I will not even buy it.
Thank you, Mr.
You're
Edmond.
welcome.
Mr. Christopher Omba, which are the promising sector of activities where Africans are more likely to invest and be world leaders?
Before giving an answer to this question, I want to come back on the last one. And to complete what Edmond has just said,
Yes.
I want to insist on the fact that we need to. There are plenty of blockage. There are plenty of interferences that are slowing down the possibility of using crowdfunding, because the technical word now recognized for what you are exposing there is crowdfunding.
Mm.
For example, there is a very interesting example for crowdfunding. The freedom statue in America
Mm.
have been built because people have chosen to collect their money to do something for as a symbol of their integrity, desire of justice, and so on. which means there are plenty of obstacles that need to be tackled so that we can give a proper answer. And in order to do so, we need to set uh, set a strategy. Many countries around have started and of course are succeeding. And I want to go on the same side. Hetzman give the proposal. The government need to push new mechanisms to enhance the performance of the financial system. We need to recreate an ecosystem that responds to our needs. We can no longer manage the financial system like they are doing in France. It's not relevant. We need to cope the financial need of our nation with the potential. And I can even say it's possible, but it is going to require a complete dedication from three parts. The private and the governments need to stop putting the private away from things. They need to have a very decent partnership. When someone put a project into set a project and would like to give it to the government to implement, it has to be managed quickly as possible. Personally, I've been working on a project for alternative energy, tap energy, but we have worked for something like 3 years and are still trying to convince people that something that is going to benefit to all the country is worth taking risk, which is not, which is no longer possible. The government need to set an e-governance system to monitor the project. And for the crowd lending, to go back on the crowd lending, I think it's possible. There might be some strategy. We need to try something, because if we don't use our own money, bank don't trust. This element of trust that Edmond has just put on the table is one of the most important. There's no trust for the financial institution because of the poor aptitude of reading the risk, or because I was because the credit scoring is too much classical and it's not enough reactive. For example, if you want to give money to someone, you work in a bank, you are a credit analyst, you need to have construct this trust within years so that he can receive the money. But when we use technology, we need to change our mindset. No, this guy no longer needs to be there. If he can call his friends every day, if he can move from Yaoundé to Douala, if he can, or from a town to another, we can anticipate or analyze his digital footprint on a financial basis to know exactly we can give this amount to this guy, is going to turn it back within time. So we don't do that. Ethiopia, for example, is doing that. They have created an ecosystem where they can do crowdfunding, the way you have just presented. They can also do crowd lending. It means you can have your account in a bank. There is a huge system that gives you the possibility, if you want to take risk, to lend your money to someone who is in need. It's going to kill the how do we call that in this is a French word for that one. This is called usure.
Yeah.
So how do we say that in English?
No, usually it's a kind of lending.
Yeah, it's a kind of lending,
Yeah.
but it's not regulated by the
Yeah.
authorities.
At all.
So it's a fraud.
Mm.
So people cannot borrow money among themselves, when in fact it's just in human nature to have the possibility, the freedom to pick the money and to give it to someone else, to have that back into certain conditions. It cannot be done. But the financial world has evolved so that it needs to be done, especially in Africa, especially in our continent. But if you get back to someone who has been involved in a bank, it has the mindset of European bank, which is not possible anymore. We need to recreate, re-engineering, to create new product that is going to be adapted to our reality. The next example is for insurances. Do you know that our population is so weakly insured? I would think about something like 5% at the maximum, because I don't remember the exact. So the maximum revolve around 5%. My God. So if you have you have a very you are amazed by a disease, you cannot heal your child, you cannot heal yourself. It's not possible anymore. You need to have an insurtech set of product. It means that based on the way you live, based on your reputation, for example, based on your digital footprint, based on many indicators, you can be at the position where you have no money on yourself, and you still ask the money, and there is a system that is well defined and monitored by the government that allows you to still have a minimum to help your family. It would be a completely different life for everyone. But when you talk about, no, it's not possible. Oh, you have not matured. At least you need to explore the possibilities. Stop thinking that the youth is not able to do those things. We are completely able. We need support.
Only support.
I would just want to put before you ask a question into brackets, just to show you the example, what of the things how it works in the digital world.
Yes.
With the some mobile operators, for instance, when you run out of credit, you are able to borrow credit. But it goes level to level. There are some who can only borrow 500, some can borrow up to 2,000, some can even borrow up to 5,000. It depends on your consumption records. And that same thing can be done with the financial. If we are using the digital data to actually analyze, the movement, they fix the amount that you can borrow as per your consumption data.
Exactly.
How much does this guy consume per week? How much can this guy consume per day? How much can he consume per month? If they know that this guy each month he invests 20,000 in his fund, operations, it means you can give him 10% of the credit that he gets, 2,000. If they know that this guy goes up to 50,000, it means we can give, when he runs out of credit, he can borrow up to 5,000. So that's how it works. We can do the same thing in the financial, in the financial world. What he's saying is true. One of the things that they have used to actually kill economy is the classical system of analyzing risk mitigation, risk analysis, and everything in our bank. You will see people, when you go there, you have a project, you got something, you got a very nice idea, you've tried to put up a project, you go to the bank and they say, what is your record? What have you been doing for the past 3 years? We need to see your balance. I got no balance. I'm an engineer. I've got a very nice project. I've studied it. I've arranged everything. But they say, if you don't have a balance for the past 3 years, then we sorry, we cannot. Is that the world does not longer function like this? It's not like that this guy succeeded in creating the Silicon Valley. The Silicon Valley was not people who had a background in financial, in the industrial. No, it was newcomers, startups, and then they had a very good project and they were supported. And today, Silicon Valley is another world, is another planet, because actually those who have never been in Silicon Valley, they just hear like that, they don't know what we're talking about. But when you go to Silicon Valley, everything is digitalized. Everything, even when you want to drink water, you just need to press a button and water will flow. Everything is just digitalized. So is to say, I want to confirm that our system is obsolete at all level. Banking system is obsolete. We need to change it completely. Everything, even the politics is everything is obsolete. You would take a very good project, you would take it to a particular minister. He doesn't understand what you're talking about, and just for him not to prove his his mediocrity. He will say your project is not good, but at the end of the day he hasn't understood anything at all. He's completely lost. He got no clue. He has no clue of what you've just said. So at the end of the day, he will just say, "Oh, it's not a good project. I don't want to hear about it. Take it away," because he hasn't understood. So we have to change. We have to change the paradigm completely in our
To
society.
go further, before moving to the next question, government now need to create a system to monitor the idea of their citizens.
Mm.
Through technology, if you deposit your project somewhere, it has to be known that someone has on this day. They can even put camera to see what is done.
Mm.
They can even spy their minister,
Mm.
for example, or their government agent to ensure themselves that all the national intelligences are collected fairly to respond to the need of their vision as well, and for the sake of the economy. Okay, now I'm going to try to to answer to the next question. For the main sectors that can just stimulate the takeoff of our economy, I'm going to put emphasis on the energy, because we are living in the most in the most disappointing energetic context. Africa is built is not built, it's based on natural resources, the most impressive one of our planet. When it comes on resources like bauxite, there are plenty. They are for energy energetic swap. It means we can create a balance on based on the use of different kind of energy to optimize the energical pools of distribution for the families, for the government, and so on. So the first chapter is the energical sector. There are sectors like aeolian energy that are not explored at all. I may easily doubt that there is not enough winds, for example, that can be utilized for our greatest good. There are sectors like gas. We know that African has gas. Even if it's not here, it may be in Chad or some. There are plenty of gas that can be used, and the fuel will be economized, because many countries they spend a lot of money to import fuels in their country, their space, which create an asphyxie in terms of financial means to fund their projects and so on. There is also the digital transformation, but I have talked a lot. I can also say that we can literally create a unit or a ministry to show to the youth that they can get into web entrepreneurship. The way the rate of web entrepreneur in Cameroon are is very low. For example, I'm centering myself around my country. You need to excuse me because I like it better than the others. But for web entrepreneurship, there are plenty of underemployed. They don't even know that with their capabilities they can produce something like a book, for example. They can make films. They can make some things online. They don't even know. And I've been involved with ESSEC, as I was an animator of a training session for web entrepreneurship. There are plenty of opportunities there. The next sector is one other sector before I leave this question. It is the textile sector, because we spend a lot of money taking clothes from other countries when we have our own resources. And there is a very good initiative that has been taken by the government recently. It's called Industrial Development Plan. It was made in order to respond to this reactive need, to this need, but it's still not. We don't feel that. We don't feel the strategy, which is another issue. The government need to share their strategies with their population. They need to make them become cultural assets. They need to push the people in the same vision. We cannot just set something and keep it there. At least they can even share that in school. They need to teach that to people and to force them eventually to go in those sectors. There is a very difficult situation in education we are facing. We observe that there are many students that go through social sciences when in fact the desire is should be oriented toward engineering sectors. We need to stop allowing this. There is also an efficiency of policies. We need to give them a decent orientation so that they can reach where it's most needs. So I'm going to end up for the moment because there are so many things
Yeah,
that need to be done.
yeah. Something that I can add, talking about the sectors that need to take, we are not inventing development. I mean, the channel of the criteria of development are well known. Like he was saying, energy is the main sector because you cannot get industrialized if you don't have energy that it takes actually to build up industries. So we need first to put up good plans for our energy. We got to make sure, because one of the problems in most of the African countries is that uh, the, the the domestic energy, that is just the bolts that you need at home, we haven't reached that yet. For instance, here in Cameroon, we don't have energy every day. That's why we get this cut off every day. So we need to make sure that we really overcome this problem of energy. Once we've conquered the problem of energy, it means we can set up industry to be able to transform our properly our own natural resources, because so far what we do is we sell our human our resources, and then we import things that we eat, which is kind of is crazy. If we transform our own natural resources here, it means we are adding a value to our resources, and by adding value to our resources we create jobs, we multiply our resources, and then we increase our GDP. But if we keep on selling our raw materials, we add no value, and then we become consumers. That is one of the problems. We are simple consumers. We import 80% of goods that we eat, that we consume in our country. 80% including rice, oil, fish, everything. It is amazing. It is crazy. How do you figure that? We have everything that is take to produce rice in our country. We don't do that. we have we are open in two seas. Krabi, Limbe, we are open on the seas. We cannot fish. We have to import 90% of our fish.
No, no.
It is crazy. So these are things that simply I don't understand. But you get to understand that as at the end of the day, we still under the colonization. We never have to forget that. And the colonial master want to make sure we remain consumers, because we get to help to sustain the industries there over there to turn, and then we are mere consumers. So we play two roles. The first role is we supply their industries with the raw materials, and then at the end we import what they produce, and then we cut from producing, because by producing is where you add a value to your resources, and then you create jobs, you multiply your resources and so on. That is what they don't want us to do. Nobody wants Africa to be industrialized, because once Africa is industrialized, it will paralyze their industries. They will produce for themselves, and then they will not be able to have market in Africa actually to sell their product that they produce in their industries, and so on. So what, that is one of the problem. I think we are running out of time of the program, because I'm seeing signs over there. But just to say that this is something we can go, maybe next time we can go deeply to prove to you that actually Africa has what it takes to be developed. It's just a matter of vision. We don't have that vision. We don't have a perspective. We don't plan. We live in day after day, day in, day out. We just get up in the morning and we ask ourselves, what are we doing today? Should we buy this? Shouldn't we? So that is how we live it. But instead, I'm sure, I have hope. I'm not desperate. I have hope that a generation will come, and it will take just a couple of years to transform, because we have seen example like in Rwanda, for instance. It took Mr. Kagame just 10 years to transform Rwanda into a paradise that everybody is like looking with very good eyes today. It took him just 10 years. So normally, if we get good people actually piloting African countries, it will not take us more than 10 years to transform Africa into a paradise where everybody will be happy to live. I'm quite certain. It's just a matter of time. I'm certain it will.
Especially if we use digital transformation
Sure.
and last technology
Exactly.
to use our data. We need to stop letting our data used by someone else against us. We need to use our data to make righteous decisions and to make performance analysis of the situation and in the most reactive way.
Thank you, Mr. Edmond.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr.
You're
Omba, for
welcome.
this great moment of television spent together on Africa TV, the television of an Africa that is moving forward. It was pleasant and edifying. Let's meet in a week for the same pleasure. Goodbye.